This is a topic that's kind of been done to death in various different forms, but I wanted to reiterate my thoughts on it because it just doesn't go away and it's so tiresome to see these things on repeat with no end in sight. Director Jordan Peele recently made a statement about how he doesn't see himself casting white dudes as leads. This is exactly what his statement said. I don't see myself casting a white dude as the lead in my movie. Not that I don't like white dudes, he said, nodding over to his moderator pal Roberts, but I've seen that movie. The line drew loud applause and shouts of agreement. It really is one of the best, greatest pieces of this story, is feeling like we are in this time. A renaissance has happened and proved the myths about representation in the industry are false. Now, given that he's the creator, he's under no obligation to hire anyone he doesn't feel falls in line with his vision. He has creative control, and he's free to utilize that as he sees fit. The issue here is not Jordan Peele making the films that he wants to make with the actors he wants to make them with. The issue is the very clear double standard when it comes to statements like these. At this point, we should all be wise enough to know that you can't get away with making a generalization such as, I have no problem with black dudes, but I've seen that movie before, as the implication that people take away from it is that you see all of one group as the same, so if you've seen one, then you've seen them all. By this very same reasoning, you would think that would apply to Peele's statement, but it doesn't. Peele's statement drew applause from the majority of people. The Quartering jokingly pointed this out on Twitter and received quite a bit of backlash for the statement. This response by Sky Williams is especially ridiculous in my opinion. Jordan's message is fine because there's a massive outstanding debt to actors of color. He's trying to close the gap by hiring black leads. This isn't an affront to white people, but rather a way to expedite equal representation of media. We want to catch up to y'all, you know? Sky seems to be under the impression that there is some sort of debt owed to certain people solely on the basis of their race because of this myth of equal representation. There is no debt because you aren't owed anything. My issue with the equal representation narrative is that not only does it imply that equality across the board is deserved, but it completely ignores the percentages of the demographics involved. If one race makes up more of the population in the country than another, then it makes sense that you would see more of them. Rather than ever taking this into account, the narrative is that any and all disparity in demographics must be due to a form of systemic oppression rather than the numbers manifesting themselves as they appear in reality. You can't have 50-50 across the board without artificial inflation, and when you do that, it's anything but equal, as you are selecting people by the very same metrics which you simultaneously argue that they should never be judged by. And as always, the equal representation narrative is pushed within jobs that are more, quote-unquote, privileged than that of ordinary citizens. You'll have to forgive me for not giving a damn if people who get to make hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars playing pretend on TV don't feel like they have enough. Representation, diversity, inclusion, these are all manipulative buzzwords to guilt people into giving them what they want without any critical thought involved, and the worst part is that so many people fall victim to it. They get morally outraged and believe they're fighting for all that's good and right, while ignoring common sense, often to their own detriment. You'll also note that in situations like these, the groupthink and generalizations kick in, and suddenly it's not a bad thing to lump all of one type of person together so that you can claim some sort of need for group recognition. The mere act of having people present who look a certain way should never be enough to cover a wide range of people and experiences. Representation is nothing more than a marketing tactic, and weak-minded individuals are falling for it because they somehow think that an actor on TV is representing them just by extension of being present on the screen. I've heard all of the counter-arguments before, and I'm not buying it. The ever-popular, you're just saying this because you're always represented, only goes to show how much projection is at play. You assume everyone who watches TV is narcissistic enough to feel the need to see themselves based on a lie you've been told by corporations and the media who are only interested in profiting off of your stupidity. Just because you feel like you need some celebrity on a screen to represent you based on a physical characteristic doesn't mean it's true of everyone, nor does it mean that it actually represents you in any meaningful way. This entire ideology is riddled with hypocrisy and double standards. Every person who creates a story should be able to write it their way without caving to external pressure about bullshit ideas of diversity and inclusion. People need to stop feeling entitled to that which is not theirs. If someone says they don't feel represented, they should learn to speak for themselves instead of living vicariously through some shallow avatar on a screen. For people always arguing that others lack empathy, it's awfully funny how you can't seem to relate to anyone who isn't exactly like you in every respect. That being said, every creator should be able to make their vision as close to what they have imagined as possible, instead of having to cave to pressure over these ideas of diversity and inclusion. You can't argue that some people are free to make what they want to make when it's convenient, while trying to strong-arm others into a made-up diversity quota for your personal comfort. If you're okay with Peele's statement, then any other creator saying something similar should get the same reaction because, like you said, he's just making the movies he wants to make. You see, if you're actually about so-called equality, which, let's be real, none of these people actually are, then you have to allow for that creative freedom across the board, regardless of identity.